Welcome back. Welcome to part 2 of our analysis of rage quitting and also our top 10 rage quitting moments from our gaming history.
Okay.
If you didn't see part 1, go back and watch it because it was great.
Right now.
Yeah,
Watch it right now.
just do it now. Cool.
This won't make any sense.
No, exactly. So this is part 2. So should we jump right back into game moment number 5? So 5 going all the way up to 1. Number 5 for me is Diablo 2. Classic RPG, one of Blizzard's finest games, I think. Dungeon crawler, fantastic RPG. Very, very few complaints with the game at all. It's one of my favourite games of all time. But when you complete the game, you go through it on normal mode, and then afterwards you have higher difficulties, Nightmare and Hell mode. And the game experience is essentially the same, but the enemies are obviously a lot more difficult. And all the bosses, they get a couple of random extra abilities to make them more difficult. So they could either have more toughness, or do more damage, or be immune to certain damage types, or whatever. And the reason it made me rage quit this particular time is because I was facing a boss called the Smith, a sort of demonic blacksmith, who was given the random abilities of super toughness and teleportation. But whenever he would teleport, he would gain a little bit of health back. So I'm a barbarian, just sort of smashing him down, chipping away at the life every now and then. And then every 10-15 seconds, he'll teleport and regain some of his health. It was just the most frustrating thing. Drained all of my health potions, all of my gold and stuff. What I should have done was just quit, come back in again, and see him get 2 other random abilities that wouldn't be such a deadly combination. But I didn't, so I just raged until he killed me, and yeah, so that was just just horrible.
Roughly how long did you spend?
I think with all the deaths and all told, probably a couple of hours, which is a lot for a Diablo boss, like an awfully long time, an awfully frustrating time.
See, that's something else I think is worth pointing out about rage quits. Sometimes you say, I spent 20 minutes on it, I went crazy, I threw the controller across the room.
Sure.
And then other times you're saying, I spent 7 hours on it. 7 hours in an actual day of my life I spent constantly playing this. And I didn't get anywhere.
Achieving nothing but higher blood pressure.
And it's the exact same amount of frustration, it just gets you there in different ways at different times.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's number 6. Sorry, number 5.
Number 5? I hope that's not... Yeah, number 5. So what's number 5 for me, you ask? I'll tell you. Sounding a little bit kiddie here, I suppose, because this is going to be my second entry to do with Mario.
Nothing wrong with Mario. Nothing kiddie about that.
On the Wii, no less. Mario Galaxy on the Wii. And anyone who's played it will probably tell you it is one of the best games ever. Because it is really, really fucking good. And certainly as far as like Nintendo 3D platformers go, it is the best. It is the pinnacle of that form of gaming, in my opinion. It is absolutely. Okay. It's a delight to play from start to finish. I I really enjoyed it so much so. There are no achievements. There are no achievements on the Wii. So you set yourself tasks. And my task was to try and get all the stars. Because there's always stars, and I wanted to get every single star available to me.
You are the nemesis from Resident Evil.
I am.
You're all about the stars.
I am. Slightly less ruthlessly efficient. But yeah, so there I was going through it, and there was this particular, it was a bonus sort of mission, and I think it was called just like the Rolling Ball Galaxy or something like that, but you essentially, you had Mario balanced on a ball, the star was in the ball, and you had to get him all the way to the end to unleash it. There were no checkpoints, nothing like that, it was just straight through. And you had to control it by holding the Wii remote steady and just tilting it ever so slightly from left to right to move him left and right. And there were jumps, there were tight corners, there was a part where you just had to negotiate with sort of lots of right angle turns. So the slightest bit of, off balancing, and you would throw Mario off the side and he would die. And I mean, I had, and anyone who's played this game will know, you get like 30 or 40 lives very quickly racked up, because it's quite a simple, fun to play game. But on missions like this, you just rattle all the way through them and get to the game over screen. which I had thought up until this point was impossible. And yeah, I was pretty angry. I remember battering the Wii remotes against the floor. They had that sort of rubber protective thing.
Oh yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
You know, I actually bit that.
The Wiimote condom.
Yeah, I bit it. Which was a running theme.
Which of course is going to like make it less responsive in the.
If anything, yeah, it was much. You know, it was much the same, and you just start like it was that repetition. It was the same thing over and over again, and the fact you can't believe this very short task has already taken you so long, and you still haven't completed it.
Sure.
I was shouting at the screen. I was shouting at Mario. I was blaming Mario on this one a bit.
Going back to your point in the earlier video of just who do you blame?
Who do you blame? I blame Mario. I did not blame me one bit. I blame Mario. I blamed the game. You know,
he's got a very blamable face.
Yeah.
You know, the big sort of moustache.
Big moustache with grinning, and he'd fall off the side, and he'd go, "Oh no!" I can't actually remember the exact noise, you know, these days. But I was just yelling at him. I was like, "What the fuck do you fucking expect?"
Yeah.
Why even balance on the ball? That's what really annoyed me. The star was right there. He had no reason to balance on that ball. He just chose to do it.
Just out of spite.
Yeah, and there was a few levels like that where the difficulty, it wasn't a difficulty curve, it was just a difficulty fucking spike. And it was all the more anger inducing for it. But that was the one that I remember the clearest, that made me the angriest.
Got it.
Just absolutely unbearable. Very dark time. Such a friendly, bright, colourful game. It was really, really tough.
The silent killer.
Yeah.
The silent rage quit.
And I think I distinctly remember as well being really upset with the fact that it was a kid's game.
Yeah.
And that it was beating me. Like, a child can do this. I can't.
Yeah.
You know, a 4-year-old boy has just rinsed this. He's just done it like that, and I have stumbled.
So it can and will, you know, bite you from, you know, very unexpected sources. The old rage quitting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Number 4, Fallout 3.
Yeah.
For anyone who is familiar with games published by Bethesda, you'll know that they have a bit of a reputation for releasing them very buggy. Yeah. There'll be a lot of
rush it out.
Yeah, rush it. Well, they take a long time. They make very, very good games, but they unfortunately just they've built this reputation for just not testing them enough and releasing them massive game-breaking bugs, as well as some smaller hilarious bugs, things just floating off into the sky. Or whatever.
What always upsets you about that is you've got the reputation. Why not do something about it? You know, it's almost like they've gone. Yeah. Why bother? Why
bother?
They're going to accuse us of releasing buggy games anyway, so get a load of this.
Like, may as well. Someone will fix it for us.
Yeah.
You know. The games are good enough that people will buy them.
We'll do it on the night. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
You know.
we'll patch it afterwards.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. Yeah. Which is a shame. But you're probably right. They think it's going to be very hard for us to shift that reputation. So let's just let's just roll with it.
Yeah.
That's fine.
This is our thing. That's what we do now.
And that's fine for a lot of the time. But for Fallout 3, which is a very long RPG where you have a lot of quests to do, tens and tens of hours. The problem was, the thing that made me rage quit was that there was a game-breaking bug where you couldn't complete a quest. Basically, a guy asked me to procure something for him. I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was some sort of filtration unit. And I got it, and he just wouldn't let me. It's like, so you got that filtration unit for me? He's like, yes, it's here. I fucking got it. It's like, gonna need that filtration unit. Let me give you the filtration unit. You fuck.
You see, that's a very, very niche corner of the rage quit market. It's the bug that's stopping you from doing it.
For it now.
Yeah. People are buying up all the rage quits. Buy high, sell low. Don't do that. I actually do the exact opposite.
That's what I do. The other way around. That's what we want.
It doesn't matter. We'll cut that.
We'll cut that.
But yeah, like the type where you know you've done what you need to do, and the game will not accept it.
Yeah, in that case, I blame Bethesda long and vehemently.
Yeah.
So why Bethesda? I did this. You know.
We can turn this into an open letter, couldn't we?
I know when Oi, Bethesda. you told me what you wanted me to do. I did what you wanted me to do, and now you won't let me finish it. It's the most frustrating thing. So you have to backtrack, and sometimes backtracking wouldn't actually fix the bug. So sometimes you have to go even further back, and so what it does is it forces you into this very frustrating situation where you have to plan your saves ahead. You have to space them out. So you think, well, this is me at the 4 hour point, and the 6 and 7 or whatever. Well, this is me after a very important quest, and everything's worked out fine, and so on. And that's that breaks you out of the flow of the game. So it's very frustrating. So yeah. So number 4, Fallout 3.
Okay, number 4. Fuck me, I've written this in a very strange order. Forgive me. I've written it in the reverse order to what I've said. It was
bizarre and macabre.
Yeah, it's really not as helpful as it should be. Okay, I've got it.
Okay.
Call of Duty 4. You ever heard of these games? Call of Duty.
Call of Duty. No.
They're popular amongst teens.
People like them.
People like them.
Guns.
People like them.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, guns. No women, just guns.
Not interested.
And sometimes tanks. So the breakaway hit, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, was really what propelled the Call of Duty series from being sort of just another World War shooter to the sort of the meteoric rise that it's had.
The world beater that it is today.
And yeah, it makes it basically the sort of the standard,
FPS experience.
Yeah, what's everyone playing at the minute? They're playing the latest COD.
Yeah, cool.
A well-deserved title in many ways. It is a good game. And so Call of Duty 4 certainly had some very solid game mechanics, was very fun to play. The trouble was, there was I trying to play it through. I played it through once on the normal setting, and running before I could walk, I decided I would do the veteran. I think it's veteran.
Of course.
The hardest difficulty setting you can do, and it's incredibly harsh and unforgiving because you pretty much get shot once, get shot twice, you're dead. Yeah. It's very difficult to come back from. You get shot a lot in these games. But what I kind of liked about that was I was like, hey, this is realistic. So if I do it, well, kind of realistic, I suppose.
Sure.
As much as it could be.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like, oh, this is going to be great, because I'm going to come out of it feeling like I was that soldier,
You are a special ops dude.
Yeah, because I was using cover appropriately, I was taking guys out at just the right time. And what I didn't realise very early on is that these games don't follow the mechanics that I thought they did.
Right.
I always assumed, and throughout my time playing it on normal, didn't realise otherwise, that I thought that there was sort of always a finite amount of, terrorists or Russian dissidents or whatever for you to kill in any given area. And so you could sort of take your time about it, maybe snipe a few, maybe run in and kill a few with an automatic weapon and just sort of pace yourself like that. Well, that isn't really how these games work. They tend to have spawn points. And if you haven't made it to that point, they're just going to keep sending an unlimited amount of bad guys at you till you die.
Right.
So it doesn't really suit my style of play very well at all.
So presumably there's a lot of running and gunning, basically.
Running, gunning, luck, and good reactions are sort of the order of the day. And that's just not really how I like to play. I like to sit back, be quite tactical, take things out one at a time,
let them feel the fear.
Let them feel the fear, yeah. That's my kind of wheelhouse. And I realised this very, very harsh lesson when I was playing the mission Charlie Don't Surf. Which isn't racist.
It wasn't about Vietnam, then.
I genuinely don't remember. You know what? I actually don't.
Got it.
It probably was, at least based on that. But there's this bit. You run into this room, it's filled with TVs, and you've got to get... Basically, you've just got to get to the other end of the room in one piece. I later discovered, but I thought I had to clear the room.
Right.
So there's hundreds of people, there's rocket launchers, they've got machine guns, they're throwing grenades, and at this difficulty, they throw grenades with unerring accuracy. You could be hidden round a corner, they can't see you, they don't know where you are, but they do. And so they'll throw a grenade, and it'll hit
corners and stuff.
Yeah, it'll hit literally corner at your feet every time. Wherever you are, it'll fall at your feet. And what upsets me is that's too far. That's gone beyond what I wanted, which was a comparatively realistic gaming experience, to this shit is unfair. And and that's what I would feel. And that's, several times the controller, the beloved, expensive controller, got thrown on the hardwood floor.
Yeah.
And, of course he threw a grenade at my feet. Because that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because any fucking dissident who's had 2 weeks training can accurately throw, throw a pinpoint accurate throw of grenade right to your feet.
Of course.
Every single time. And... yeah, ultimately I realised the way to do it was basically just run to one corner and run to another, and then you're done.
Much like war in real life.
Yeah.
If you find yourself in a war situation, run to one corner and then just run to another. You'll probably be alright.
But yeah, that was sort of, it's a double whammy really. I rage quit my way through it so many times, gritting my teeth. I've got chips out of my teeth from grinding them so hard at games like this, but specifically this one, and... when I finally got through to the end of the mission, a little achievement popped, because it's very, very kind, really, the Call of Duty games. When you're playing the harder difficulties, you get like a 40-point achievement every few levels to keep going,
So it fed your rabid habit, which is good.
But was actually sufficient to make me give up, because
right.
I think I got through one mission after that, and I was just tired, and I was emotionally drained from playing these games. I just couldn't do it anymore. I think I got through to about the 5th mission of Call of Duty 4, and I've never tried to go back to it really.
Just didn't want to get grenaded anymore.
I was through. I was done. And I suspect that's probably one of the hardest parts, and that I could pick it up again, but
don't.
I can't do it. I will probably one day do it, but for this point I can't. Yeah. So why don't you give us what you've got now?
Good stuff. Number 3, so into the top 3. So my number 3 is a moment from World of Warcraft. I had a 6-year-long love affair with World of Warcraft. It was great times, fantastic game. If you haven't heard of it, you've clearly been living under a rock. It's perhaps the finest example of a world-beating
time sink.
Yes, exactly. It's a massive time sink, but also one of the finest massively multiplayer online games ever created. And the moment I loved it from start to finish, but when I got into the higher end stuff where you start to do raids, which is large groups of adventurers going to kill a very, very hard boss. These things could take very, very long time. If you weren't skilled enough or you weren't practiced with it, it could take 5-6 hours. However long it just takes as long as it takes. And because it's an online game and people are counting on you to be part of the group, dropping out is usually frowned upon. So this particular raid took us about 5 hours to do. We'd been wiped out many times. And I was tired, hungry, just wanted to stop playing. Basically, the fun had been drained from the experience because we'd done so much. Finally killed the final boss, and were receiving the loot, the treasure that the boss drops. And it was all shit, just categorically all shit. Nothing I could use, nothing that many of the other people could use, and it just made me think, well, that's 5 hours. It's 5 hours I'm not going to get back, and I didn't get anything for it. And of course, with these games, it shouldn't all be about the loot. It shouldn't all be about the reward. It should be about the experience and overcoming the challenges and stuff. But at that particular time, I just thought, well, there's nothing I as a gamer or nothing my party could have done to improve our odds of getting better treasure. It was purely random. It's just there's just a certain chance that the right thing will drop for you, and there's nothing else you can do about it. So that is very daunting when you're going into that situation, again, knowing that it could take you 4 or 5 hours or however long, and you might not see the ultimate reward for it at the end. And so that is what made me rage quit quite hard on that one.
I mean, those games kind of come down to grinding a lot.
And they do. There is a lot of grinding.
I mean, I suppose that's the next level of grinding, like the 5-hour raid. Did I get the sword? No, I didn't get the sword. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Let's do the raid again.
Exactly.
And that's
because then when you're familiar with the content and you're doing it again, I mean, if you like that particular dungeon or that you like that particular content, then that's fine. But if it's something that you really want the treasure at the end, but you don't enjoy the experience, then that is,
Yeah.
as you say, next level grind.
Yeah, and I
that
mean,
is
it's my
fucking annoying.
personal idea of hell. I mean, I do a lot of grinding in games already, and I think the trouble is, with those games, there is no end, you know.
No.
In any given game where I'm grinding, I know I'm going towards a certain goal, and that certain, you know, if it's a certain item that's going to give me a certain armor or whatever else in like a Final Fantasy game, then I know there is a finite amount of armor, there's a set amount of
Eventually you will
things.
get it.
Eventually, I'll have it, I'll have what I want, I'll be done.
Mm.
There is no being done with World of Warcraft.
No,
There's always something else to do.
And also, in that specific situation, you may never get the piece of equipment that you want.
I mean, statistically, there's a chance.
Yeah, that could happen. You could do it 10, 15 times. It's unlikely, but it could happen. And then before you know it, the new expansion's out, and your gear is now shit, and you have to get the new stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's that's the trouble. When my wife comes home from work and I've had a day off and I've been playing games, she'll generally say, "What did you do today?" And I mean that's what kind of causes me to have a long, hard look at myself and what I'm doing with my life, because if I say, "Oh, well, today I went and I found this armored tortoise," okay, and I killed the armored tortoise, and I killed him about 200 times, and unfortunately today he didn't drop the platinum ingot that I was after. Maybe tomorrow. You know,
Maybe tomorrow.
you really have to think. You've literally achieved nothing in that time.
Yeah.
That was a fairly faulty reference to Final Fantasy 13.
Oh, was it? Oh, sorry, I didn't get that.
No, you wouldn't. You haven't played it. But
Right, there you go, yeah.
I can't remember if it was a platinum ingot or something, but it was a large armored tortois that you have to kill time and time again.
Sure.
It's not easy either. It's not particularly fun.
Yeah.
You grind your way through it, and hopefully sooner or later you get what it drops.
And grind is a massive problem. Not for many games, but very specifically for MMOs.
Yeah. It's their bread and butter, really. It's how they get you. You've got to grind to play.
But at least World of Warcraft is very, very good in actually mixing up the flow a little bit and doing things that aren't grind. And I think with time they've got a lot better. But that's just it. So the rage quit moment was the crystallizing moment was the fact that I'd spent 5 hours doing this dungeon, and there was nothing I could do to influence the end result, which was me getting jack shit for it. So and there's the game design elements that put that together. They kind of make sense, but it just didn't make it any easier. So number 3, World of Warcraft, great game, massive rage.
Okay, now we're into my top 3. Shit's better get real. For number 3, I've opted for Mortal Kombat. Not the original.
But one with the same name.
The one with the exact same name. It's got a year after it. I always assume it's like 2011, but I think it's actually 2009.
Right. I love it when they do that. You know, with the same name, just to really make it simple.
Yeah. And it's a fun game. It appealed to my inner child, or I suppose more like my inner early teen.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, look at him, he's ripping his balls off and he's putting them in his mouth and he's kneading them in that mouth and he swallowed the balls. And it's a grotesque,
what more could you want
grotesque, fun game. And hidden beneath that was actually a very complex set of sort of combo structure and game mechanics. And I rage quit a hell of a lot at this game. And Mortal Kombat's always kind of been a weakness of mine. I'm a Street Fighter guy, I'm good at Street Fighter, I can play that. I enjoy playing Mortal Kombat, but I've always been really shit at it. And in the older Mega Drive games, Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 and 3, I think I completed it with a couple of characters a handful of times at most. I never could complete it with everyone because the games were, I always felt a little unduly tough. And they really wanted to stick with that theme with this one, clearly. So, so I want to talk about Shao Kahn. I don't really know how to pronounce it.
Khan.
The massive prick. Skull-faced wanker. Like, who is the boss. He's the end of every arcade ladder.
And the M. Bison of Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. And what bothers me, what really fucks me off, is when a game trains you in a certain way. When you're playing, like, there's 10 fights in every arcade ladder in Mortal Kombat, and it's got its own difficulty curve within. You've picked a medium difficulty, so it's going to start at a certain point and end at a certain point, and it really does quite a good job, because the first few fights are really easy, just getting into it with your character, learning a few of the basic moves and combos, and as the ladder goes on, you need to get better at blocking, because they're going to throw out a lot of moves at you, and you need to be ready to sort of counter attack, and then you need to get better at sort of knowing when you can throw out your attacks, because if you throw out one and it gets blocked, then you're opening yourself up to a combo, and it's a very sort of thrust and parry, back and forth kind of thing that you learn from and you get better from. And then it just throws it out the fucking window. And then you
so we're done with that?
Yeah, like, okay, you've learned, you've done well, and your final challenge is to completely ignore all that and face this unbelievably cheap boss. He's faster than you, he's stronger than you, he has more vitality than you do.
He can shrug off your moves.
He can shrug off your moves at a moment's notice. You can do your X-ray attack as like your, go-to move. It can take off like half of a normal character's energy, and it takes off like a fifth of his. So you can't just use that. And you can't just be better at the game, because that's not really what it's all about anymore. You get really good at blocking, and you'll find at the higher levels and when you're playing online, you're pretty much blocking all the time, really, until you find your opening. And against him it doesn't work, because he's got at least one attack. He's got that attack, he throws the hammer at you, and the hammer hits you in the head. And
even if you're blocking, it still breaks.
It ignores your block, and it dazes you. Or other times he's like, oh, you're blocking, well fine, well I'm just going to throw this spear at you. We're just going to throw the spear. I've got to throw it like 5-6 times, and you've lost half your health, because you, like a mug, you've stood there blocking the spear instead of attacking him. And then so you try and go all out and out aggressive, but then close quarters, he's incredible. He can do anything to you. He can batter you in the face with a sword, and all his attacks seem to have higher priority.
Yeah.
And it all adds up to just a massively frustrating experience, where the only way to win is to play it quite cheesy yourself. And you'll usually end up having seeing people online who do it, and they'll like jump over his head and they'll sweep, and then they'll jump over his head and they'll sweep. And I just feel like
real kind of organic flow to the combat.
Yeah, I just feel like if I do that, I've given up.
Yeah.
He's already won, even if I beat him.
And you kind of got to think for the audience watching, like if you were in that situation, like the big fight, Liu Kang versus Shao Kahn, the battle for the gods, and it's just some dude jumping over another guy and sweeping him and just jumping around, just some sort of like bizarre Benny Hill sketch or something, and just think, well, that's not epic. Yeah, and so your frustration's already up here, right? And I'm sure a few people watching this will be like, how's that made? Like Shao Kahn was a piece of piss. And I, not our crowd, not my audience, mate. But I just can't get to that point. And I think there's two things that make the frustration go from here to here. And the first one is knowing that there is probably a way I could beat him, and that would be by learning one of these string combos of like 20 button presses that are unblockable. So as long as you know you can get one hit in on him, you wait for that opportunity, you unleash that 20 hit combo, and you're probably as good as beating him already. But I just don't have the patience, I don't have the timing, I'm just not good enough. And I haven't put the time into the game to learn those combos, not only for one character, but for every character to ultimately win. And I know that's all I have to do, and knowing that I haven't done it and that it's too late for me to try do it by the time I've already got to Shao Kahn greatly upsets me, because I've already probably spent about an hour playing the game to get to him. Sure. And the other thing is that he fucking taunts you, he insults you. Oh god, yeah. And sometimes he's just like, you will never win, or you're like, ha 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 ha. You suck. You suck is actually what he says, and it just like, it gets me so mad while I'm playing the game. It's not that I've lost, it's that I know I'm about to lose, and he's going to stand there, he's going to give me an opportunity to go hit him by going, you suck. And I know I'm not going to get to him in time, and just as he's finished telling me how much I suck, he's going to twat me in the face with a hammer, and then he's going to stand there with his hands on her hips, and some bikini-clad, chained-up slave girl is going to come nuzzle up against his leg. It's like this ultimate fuck you to the gamer, isn't it? And
And so I've beaten him a few times. I've beaten him with a few characters, but I've just not had the tenacity that I've had with other games to be able to go back and just try again until I can beat him.
To round that one off, realistically, how many losses do you think you've had to Shao Kahn per victory against him?
I think it's high double figures. I think it's 60 sometimes.
Tens and tens
I mean,
of losses.
there are a couple of times where I've been pretty lucky.
Yeah.
It's only taken about 10 tries and I've got
Sure.
it. Other times...
But on average, we're looking around, 50, 60.
At times, yeah.
Okay.
And you know, again, you think back to the coin op days, every time you lose, that's a coin you've got to put in to get to continue.
They would not make this game for arcade.
No. Well, I think they might have.
Okay.
We should look into that.
Yeah, we should really do our research.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Number 2. So yeah, very much continuing from that theme. The big one, Street Fighter 4, Seth, end boss. So this is going to be quite quick because it's exactly the same things we've just been talking about with Shao Kahn. Seth, incredibly cheap boss.
Yeah.
He
has the best moveset in the game.
Best moveset.
He's quicker. He's
quicker, stronger. But just cheap. Just an incredibly cheap boss. And much like Shao Kahn's taunting, he did a move which infuriated me beyond measure, where he was like a sort of demigod type thing, and he could suck you into his stomach, spin you around like he was some sort of human like some sort of tumble dryer type thing, and then spit you back out onto the screen, doing massive damage. And this just infuriating because you could block, it wouldn't matter. You could be half a screen away, it wouldn't matter. He'd just draw you in, kind of like a tractor beam. It was the cheapest move I've ever seen, and it just I can't believe how mad it got me.
Yeah.
So just.
And it's the same kind of thing as well. Like, you've spent time working up to get Seth. It's not like you can say, I'm going to take a break, I'm going to turn the game off, I'm going to come back.
No.
Because the game is where it is.
It's the last boss. You've got to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, this kind of... I didn't actually put Seth on my list. But, I mean, this was something for both of us, really, because we would play it together, and we would take turns to try and keep the blood pressure down and try and keep us focused, and just say, you have a couple of goes, I'm out, I'm fed up.
I can't do this.
I mean, the absolute worst was Seth versus Chun-Li. That was sort of, I think, 2 or 3 hours of solid play, I would have said. Because Chun-Li's such a weak character, and you have to be really good with her.
It felt like 2 or 3 hours.
It was probably only about 10 minutes.
Yeah, but it was a long time.
One of the only things I'd say where I'd actually put Shao Kahn above Seth in terms of how cheap I think he is that Seth has one fairly notable weakness, is that he's got the lowest toughness in the game.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you can do a lot of damage.
So your basic attacks will actually do a hell of a lot of damage to him, but it doesn't really matter because you can't get close to him to do the attacks. Yeah. And you think it's that feeling of unfairness, that feeling of I was right there, I was about to do my super combo, and then he just threw me up in the air. He did Zangief's pile driver.
Yeah.
And then he threw out about 20 of Guile's sonic booms for good measure as I was falling to the ground.
And or just interrupting moves. Like, how am I not taking priority for my move?
At this point, why am I not in charge?
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason it didn't make my list is because I look back on it a little more fondly now, because I kind of got the knack. Where I never managed to get it with Shao Kahn, I got the knack of beating Seth. I've beaten him, I'm proud to say, I've beaten him with every character, I've beaten him on the hardest difficulty, and I managed to beat him on the hardest difficulty without using a continue. So I felt like I'd really laid that ghost to rest. I beat Seth because I'd figured it out.
Definitely.
And it plays a lot into what I've said before, which I don't really like fighting games doing, which is I didn't use my incredible skills at the game, my knowledge of the timing or my knowledge of the special moves. I jumped, I kicked him in the head, and I crouch blocked. And I did that over and over again. And if you get the timing of that right, he can't beat you. And I feel horrible doing it. I feel horrible admitting to it. This is like some sort of offender management group where I'm talking about a crime I committed, because I feel like I did commit a crime in doing that. But that's the only way to do it. That was the only way to do it, and that's bullshit.
There you go. So
Okay, so
number 2, Street Fighter 4. My Seth is your Shao Kahn.
Yeah, and over to me. For my number 2 is in a very similar vein, Street Fighter 2, M Bison. And ultimately, I had
the Seth before there was Seth.
Yeah, because of the amount of rage he created, like as bad as it was when we were both up against Seth and we were shouting and we were screaming. I even shouted at Tom when we were playing Seth because he bought me that game, and I shouted at him for buying it for me.
You did this.
You did this to me. You gave me this disease, is what I was sort of getting across with. But with Street Fighter 2, I was all alone. I was by myself. I'd be in my bedroom, and like any other teenage boy, alone in his bedroom, I was yelling at a computer screen.
Jacket.
Nope.
Oh, sorry.
Nope.
That's just me.
Nope. It was just rage. Rage was all I was spewing forth. And plenty of it. It was the Mega Drive. It was Super Street Fighter 2, M Bison, and I discovered that you had to play the game on a 4-star difficulty or higher to get the character's ending, to see their ending. So I wanted to see everyone's ending. So I played through the game as every character from Street Fighter. And there wasn't that many. I was 16, I guess.
Something like that.
God, if I got that right, that'd be good, wouldn't it?
Something like that, yeah.
It's
definitely, it must be between 12 and 16.
Yeah, somewhere in the ballpark. And so I would fight my way through, and I would get through to M Bison, and I would invariably scream. I would throw the controller. Back to the biting thing, I actually bit the wire to my Mega Drive controller and nearly stopped it from working. I nearly electrocuted myself, probably. And I don't know why I did it, and looking back on it, I can't think why I did it, but I can also see myself doing it again, and I'm really glad that controllers have gone wireless for this reason.
Yeah, that's why they did it.
For some reason, in my head, the thing I had to do, I was so angry at losing to M Bison, and I don't want to sound like a broken record here, it's a very similar kind of thing, that he was cheap, that, what pissed me off the most about Bison, which is just something I would learn to make my peace with in the future, is that it's the first time I realised that the computer didn't have to input the same commands that I did. So if I was playing with Bison and I wanted to do the Psycho Crusher, I held back for 2 seconds and then forward and I pressed the button. But he could just do it like that. And when the day that I realised he was doing that was the day I rage quit. Like, the harshest, I suppose.
Yeah. Breaking your own rules.
Yeah, because that's what it felt like to me. It felt like he was being given such a distinctly unfair advantage.
Yeah.
And there was no counter. Bison had a pretty average moveset, but his ability to just do them on cue. If I threw
one after another.
Yeah, exactly. If I threw out a fireball, he'd stomp on my head, and if I anticipated that and tried to jump into the air and punch him, in fucking mid-air, he would just punch me.
Yeah.
I'd fall to the floor, and then he'd Psycho Crusher for good measure. And there was a lot of really close-run games that I would scream and shout because I just couldn't. There's that little bar of energy left, and then he was blocking, and then Psycho Crusher in my face.
That's the worst, isn't it? When it's down to like you can't even see the bit of yellow against the red.
And you're already yelling. You're already going, "Come on, come on!
He's dead.
I've got it!" And the worst part about that is you let yourself believe you've done it.
Yes, absolutely.
And then the next time out, he just trounces you. You don't even get close.
No. And
you just think, how? It was so close that time. Because you just don't feel like you're making any progress when you do that. No. When you're bouncing around like that.
So that's a stage 2, type 2 and 3
rage
quit as well.
Both. Double whammy.
Double whammy. Excellent.
And he's just so fast and so fucking devastating with his moves. But I did beat him. I did eventually, even with like Dalsim and Balrog and the real shit houses.
Yeah.
I still managed to do it. I saw everyone's ending, and so I win ultimately, but in the smallest possible way. Like I really feel like I gave a lot of myself to that game.
You did.
I didn't get a lot back. Those endings were crap as well.
Oh, well, they were very much product of their time, weren't they?
Yeah.
I mean,
as good as you could expect.
Very much so. But classic, fantastic.
Okay, number one,
final one. Dawn of War 1, the expansion that involves the Necrons.
Was it Soulstorm?
No, I think Dark Millennium or...
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Go with that.
One of the early expansions anyway, the one that introduces the Necrons. So Dawn of War, real-time strategy, excellent game. Really, from the Warhammer 40,000 universe, fantastic, really, really good adaptation, really good reimagining of it. Introduces a new race of Necrons, who are these sort of sentient robot type things, and they were basically like a legion of sets, really fucking cheap, all of them. And I'm not bad at RTSs, and I would play regularly with my housemate at the time, Alan, who was actually quite bad at a lot of RTSs.
I'm sure he won't mind us saying.
No, I'm sure
he sucked.
He was quite bad, but with Dawn of War he was very good, and he was particularly good with the Necrons, and I couldn't get near him. I couldn't touch him. You know, just nothing I could do. And this really came down to one crystallizing moment, because we would play quite a lot, and we'd have the headsets on, so we'd be trash talking at the same time. And it came down to what I like to call invisible monolith gate. And the monolith with the super heavy unit that the Necrons had, it was basically like a floating pyramid that would just shoot out lasers and was incredibly tough and stuff like that. Very difficult to deal with. And this one game, I was throwing everything I had at the monolith. It was down to a very little amount of health left, and Alan used his commander with an ability to shroud units, and so he turned this whole monolith invisible, so I couldn't finish it off. And whilst it was invisible, it was still shooting my stuff and just killed everything. And I lost it. I just absolutely lost my mind. I was just screaming, oh, and now the monolith's invisible! Invisible monolith! Yeah, of course they can't shoot it. They've been shooting at it for the last 15 fucking minutes, but now it's invisible and now they can't shoot it. Of course. Ah! And so then he destroyed my army and won the game, and I jumped out of my seat so violently that I ripped the headphones out, the headphone jack out of the computer so quickly. I just ruined it. I ruined the headphones. I just ripped it off. Ran into his room just to give him a stream of abuse and tell him how cheap he was, and his race of Necrons was.
It's his race.
Not his race, but
his kind.
Yeah, his race of Necrons.
His choice of army, shall we say?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was just horrible.
Just sorry, just if you said that, I don't know if this is going to make things worse. Just looking back on it.
It was a long time ago, I think.
Yeah, in Dawn of War, do you have the ability to force fire on an area?
No, I think there's some artillery units that I think can
Okay.
do that, can attack ground rather than an area, but not many.
Not to worry. Okay,
there were a few.
fair enough. Because there was just thinking about that, like in Command and Conquer,
Yeah.
if you knew where your opponent's stealth base was, where you couldn't see it, you could just force them to attack the ground where it was.
Yeah.
So that would have done.
Yeah, that would have been good. I would have enjoyed that.
So, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, Dawn of War, Invisible Monolith game,
Yeah.
my biggest rage of all time.
All right. Tom's feeling pretty vulnerable, so I think I should better take the baton here. And I'm going to go for my number one. This is a tough choice, really. You know, I felt I should probably say, I probably should have said this as a disclaimer at the start, really, but I don't think I own a game that I haven't rage quit at some point. I get really angry.
There's a lot to choose from.
I put a lot of myself into a game, I really put a lot of my time into it, and my time is precious to me. If I feel like it's being wasted, I get angry. And I might not necessarily quit a game, but I certainly have raged out at most games that I own. For one reason or another, but this just absolutely took the biscuit. Again, it was very self-imposed. It was making a rod for my own back, and it was Halo Reach, and the achievement that I was hunting was called "And If You Came to Hear Me Beg," or "And If They Came to Hear Me Beg," which I'm sure is a quote from something, but I'm not up with it. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, if you know the achievement, you already know what I'm going to say. So for those of you that don't, it was the achievement read: survive a fall that would otherwise be fatal by assassinating an elite. So it's a very specific set of instructions. I had a quick cursory glance on Google, and I found out that the way to do it, the only way to do it, was in the final mission right at the start. You had to go running headfirst off a cliff. A fall that would almost certainly kill you. And the only way to survive it was that you landed your fall right on top of one of the elites, which is the big armoured some badasses of the Covenant in Halo, and assassinate him. So this took it all. It took timing, it took precision, it was right at the start of the mission, mercifully, so you could just restart and restart and restart and go again. But it actually had a sort of a comic sort of cartoon effect where you had to actually keep running after you jumped off the cliff for a certain amount of time to get the appropriate amount of air, and then stop running, and then you would near enough plummet and you would hit the guy. But he was patrolling as well, so it was like trying to hit a bullet mid-air with another bullet. And it was devastatingly hard, and it was just time and time again, jumping off the cliff. And a couple of times, I would land on his head, but just not time it right, so I would just end up battering him in the back of the head, killing him, but also dying myself. Once or twice, I would actually successfully land on him, I would perform an assassination, and I would jump off, and I would be fine, and the achievement wouldn't pop. So it was also a little glitched as well. And what I discovered on the internet was that there's a specific animation that you had to trigger, where you had to be at the right place at the right time as you were falling to trigger that animation, where you would stab him in the head and you would sort of jump backwards off of him. And yeah, I just weeks of my life were dedicated to turning on Halo Reach in the morning and running off a cliff like a lemming, just constantly committing suicide, trying to land on this guy, occasionally managing it and still not getting the achievement. And then I left it for a few months, and then I came back to it again, and I couldn't do it. And then I left it, and then I came back to it again. And every time, it would just be up until the point where I would rage quit. You know, where I'd be frothing at the mouth, I'd be throwing the controller around. I stomp as well, I stomp around the house to try and get some of that energy out. And I scream at everything. And in the end, to beat it, I had to actually, I looked online probably about a year or two after the game came out, and found that someone had found a much easier way of doing it that was, again, sort of manipulating a glitch, because you would jump off a very small mound that you wouldn't possibly die from, but if you jumped off that mound, you could perform the assassination and get the achievement. And it was much easier to time it, because you weren't jumping from this high, you were jumping from about this high. And yeah, I'm not ashamed of it. That's what I did. That's how I got the achievement. It was the final one I needed from like the original set from the game, not including the online ones. And that was it. That's probably the longest I've spent on such a short segment of a game.
Well, that's a real that's a real slow burn rage, because presumably it would be like a cold fury after a while. Yeah, it was. And I think the thing is, every single time, all my previous failures, so I've been known to yell, 4 fucking hours I've spent doing this particular task for nothing. Great. That's exactly what I wanted to do with my 1 day off in 10. But what would get me about this is I'd be like, 6 months! 6 months I've been trying to do this and I can't do it. And I would try playing other games and then just a quick go on Halo Reach, just a quick 20 minutes. You think, I might just get lucky. Today might just be the day.
Today will be the day that I accidentally do it.
Yeah.
Because I got more chance of doing it by accident.
Because there's such a great element of chance involved, and you think, well, you just play the numbers game.
Yeah.
Just keep doing it until by chance it happens.
I even slammed my laptop shut because I was sitting there perusing YouTube, trying to find people, Achievement Hunter and sort of pages like that specifically specialise in these kind of things. And they would just talk through it like it was the easiest thing in the world. Just like, oh, hey buddy, all you gotta do here, you gotta jump off the cliff, you just gotta land on his head, and boom, the achievement should pop. But it doesn't! Nothing about that video was true. And even when I was trying like pixel for pixel to match my character up with what their character on screen was doing, it still wasn't working.
Got it.
So that's it.
Oh.
That's our top 10.
Oh, fantastic! I feel emotionally drained
Yeah.
talking about all of this.
I
rage.
really regret. really regret making this
I
video.
regret this. I regret doing this with you.
I regret a lot of what I did here on this list, just to get
Yeah.
maybe 40 points worth of achievements or bragging rights.
But yeah, absolutely. But yeah, bizarre really when you think about it. So we hope you've enjoyed that. That was our little theory into how and why we rage about the games that we love so much, and our top 10 moments of doing it. Yeah, bizarre when you think about it. You plough so much time into it, something that's going to make you really, really angry.
And you know sometimes when you look at a task, this is going to do it.
But
It's going to make me really
But you
angry.
just dive into it head first anyway, and no one but yourself to blame, really. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it. We certainly did. And
the first introduction to Tom and Chris Gaming as a entity.
the first of many to come, I'm sure.
Tell your friends.